Minar was cooling down after like practice or something like that, and there was no one else there. Whiteley wasn't there. There was no one at the Honda thing. So me and Johnny just went in and we were chatting to Minar, and like I was measuring the bike, thumbing through the gears and stuff. And then they found out about it, and like they didn't know who I was because like I'm not a celebrity like Jonesy, yeah. And like Jonesy got so much like I just got off scot-free, tape measure over it, and I was like, this bike is like a BMX.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. I'm with Alan Muldoon.
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 A few of you have asked actually for this, which is a chat with Alan, because as you all know, he's a journalist, bike journalist from MBR, which is...
Don't oversell it.
which is a very interesting bike mag from the UK, one of the original three, you were telling me, is that right?
I mean, one of the original mags for sure.
So when did it start?
Oh, I don't know. I don't keep track of stuff like that.
But you were telling me some cool stories about Mountain Bike Rider magazine in 20 years ago.
20 years, it's more than, I've worked for over 20 years, so the mag's maybe 20, I don't know if the mag's 25 years, maybe a little bit more.
Wow.
So yeah, it was around a while, but it is no more, only a website, YouTube channel, and social media now.
But are you the longest serving bike journalist at one publication? Like one publication?
I don't know. How would I know?
I'm just trying to think. Maybe
there could be there's that old guy in Italy with the mustache. He's been around
Baffle. He's cool.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He's been around for longer than me. It's like...
he's amazing. He was telling me about bike tests. He said that they would have something like 40 or 50 bikes at a hotel. And
this was back 30 years ago, right?
And they just ride around the garden.
There's probably still a few publications do testing like that.
It was quite funny.
Because any time you see... Okay, I'm not going to call out names, but when you see a magazine or an online magazine or a PDF magazine with 20 enduro bikes, 20 enduro bike tests or something like that, yeah? When you understand how long it takes to set up a bike and actually test it properly, and I see that many bikes in one place at one time, you pretty much guarantee they're not tested. Yeah. Guaranteed. You can't do it. You can't do it.
I don't understand either.
Were we meant to start so soon, or like? I don't.
But we're doing it. This is it. We're straight in, but that's okay. We're straight into actually getting down to the nitty gritty. So, I got a few comments on the channel saying, "Oh, they want to hear, they like what you say, and they want to hear what you've got to say." So, I have prepared with my kit, and Alan sort of adjudicating a list of things we're going to talk about. We're not going to get personal, we're just going to stay on bikes because that's what everybody wants to talk about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, bikes is what it is, and you're testing bikes, that's pretty much your job, no?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about like if I'm the longest serving bike journalist. I don't know, I don't even consider myself a journalist. I'm just a dude that rides bikes, but I probably am, I don't know if there's many other bike testers.
Yeah.
Like that's my role at the mic. I am the bike test editor.
Yeah.
So basically, I basically control all the bike test content that goes through MBR, basically. But
you're on my channel, which is Alex Bike Tester.
Yeah. But when you think more of like a journalist might like write some news, do some features, test some bikes, do some stuff. I kind of really focus on bike testing.
So you've been testing then, and like you haven't got bored of it. You love it.
No, and in fact, what's really interesting. Like, and people might find this really hard to believe. If I didn't test, I'd probably get bored of riding.
Really?
Yeah, because I actually really like the process of like every time you ride a new bike, I learn something new about bikes, no matter what it is. Like I think about it a different way, or it behaves in a way that's different to other bikes. So it makes me think, why does it do that? And most people, let's face it, most people ride the same place and the same trails a lot.
Yeah.
I do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be honest, I'd get bored. Whereas I ride the same trails a lot on lots of different bikes, which gives me I like the physical side of riding, but I like the mental side of testing.
Yeah.
So it's a nice balance in that respect.
So we've met, if you know anything about following Alan on MBR, you'll see he's got the same.
I've got one of those stuff too, yeah.
Because we go on press camps, which is like interesting. So that's when a brand asks you to go and test a bike.
Hold on, let's back up. Let's back up.
A brand asks you to come along.
No one's doing any testing at press camps,
no,
okay? I've been doing this job for over 20 years, and I've been on one product launch, which where they actually back-to-back product. That's it.
Okay.
One in 20 years.
So that's a fair point.
So no one's doing any testing.
There's not enough time.
Well, there is.
But we don't.
They don't want it. That's not the purpose of a press camp. The purpose of a press camp is to launch new product to the public.
Yeah.
You're there to facilitate that.
So to be fair, most magazines call it first ride.
That's true.
Like,
yeah, that's true.
We're not.
And that they distinguish. They do distinguish between.
Yeah, I've never seen anyone write full test or long term. I mean, I might have been guilty of it once, but I normally write first test is what I do.
Yeah.
So.
And to be fair, first impressions do count for a lot.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why they have media camps. So you come there, you ride the bike, and if you can have a good initial experience on that product, because you've got all the people there to facilitate that, help you get it set up, ride the right trails for that style of bike, then it kind of sticks. Because the hardest thing is if you have a bad experience on a bike, you can spend a lot of time trying to puzzle why that was, and maybe never come to a conclusion on it.
So the last bike we rode at the same time was the Nuke Proof Megawatt, where we both had the same bike. And that's the new one with is it megawatt carbon, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's the bike with the new SRAM motor, battery,
drivetrain,
everything's
SRAM bike.
Apart from the brake. No, the brakes were
brakes are SRAM.
But they were also new brakes, weren't they? Or were they
they're just the brakes where the hose runs a bit closer to the handlebar to make it look neater. They don't work any different than any other brake.
But that's the last bike we rode at the same time. And I remember we were riding down were we shooting with the same photographer?
Yeah, with Rue. Yeah. In Andala.
Shout out to Rue, good photographer. And we got some great shots and stuff. And the bike, and it was interesting. So I was listening to you talk, because I like to, when testing bikes, I like to hear what other people have to say. Not because I'm running out of ideas. No, I was joking. But also because it's like, I want to know if I'm feeling the same things. Do you know what I mean?
So or
am I feeling something different?
Yeah, you raised an interesting point there, because I don't.
Okay.
I don't like to know what other people say. I don't like to know what other people think.
Okay.
It's like, until I've actually formed my own opinion of the bike or the product, then I'll maybe have a look at what other people think about it.
Okay.
But I like to form the opinion myself without being influenced by what other, because sometimes everyone says something's great, and you might be thinking, hey, I don't think this is so great. I can't, this doesn't feel quite right to me. And then if you start looking at what everybody else says about it, you think, you question your own feel and your own opinion of it.
That's
and
true.
I prefer to establish that first, and maybe take a chance that everyone else is wrong, or that basically, or if I then read their thing, oh, they've done that with the setup, or they found this out, then I'll try that and kind of and integrate it into what I think. But it's really easy to be influenced by other people's opinions, so you can't. I like to test in isolation in that respect.
I agree with that, because sometimes you can meet other testers who are like quite opinionated, but that's the way their personality. And other
Especially tall guys. Yeah, they are. I think every bike should have a 600mm reach or something, because that's what they want. It's like they're not thinking, what about the guy that's 5'2", or the girl, or the woman,
weighs 40 kilos,
or the woman. Like, they don't care about them. They just think, oh, every bike needs to be massive.
And interestingly, I made an error on a bike test I've just published, because I read off I got all the specs, because we can't remember all the specs. I wrote them all down. I realised I'd written the travel down for the XS size, not the SML, and the XS was 100mm.
Oh, they had different travel on the different size bikes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, oh.
You see, Alex,
classic error.
If you measured the travel on the bikes, you wouldn't have made that error.
It's true.
Yeah.
So you guys, I know you do that. You
I do
the
that.
rear
And the thing is, I've been doing that for a while.
Yeah. And is all travel what they say it is?
It's closer now than it used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is closer now than it used to be.
Okay.
And that's not because we measure it, but basically, we measure our own geometry. We print the geometry that we measure, not the geometry the manufacturer prints.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because that's taken from a CAD drawing.
Okay.
And what's being put on a computer screen isn't always what comes out of the other end at the factory.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of variability, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And it's not mistakes.
Is it like a Friday afternoon car?
No, it's not.
It's like a Friday afternoon frame, like somebody welded it on Friday.
Well, there can be a little bit. Well, a lot of frames are carbon, so there's no welding. So that's why the actual travel's more accurate than it used to be, because there's less and less alloy bikes.
True. Comes out of the mold.
But everything has a tolerance.
Okay.
So the length of the fork has a tolerance. The length of the shock has a tolerance. There's tolerance within the when a bike's welded together.
Yeah.
So if you get all of the tolerances to line up at one end, you can have a bike that's got quite different geometry to what the manufacturer claims it has. And also, there's humans involved.
Yeah.
So the guy that's writing the spec page on the website for Specialized, Trek, Giant, whoever, Canyon, instead of writing 66, he can write 63 or 64, or, like, it's just to make a typo.
That's true.
So yeah, we do that, and I've been measuring travel for a while and not printing it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the travel numbers were wildly different to the manufacturer's numbers, and I was like, hold on a second, we measure the geometry, we print that ourselves, we should be also doing that. And I was questioning how I was measuring it. I wasn't sure if I was doing it correctly. So
Do you measure the movement that the axle path takes?
No, I don't, because there's a reason for that. So
You actually measure the straight line?
I measure vertical travel, because that's the only travel you can use.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, if a bike had 100% rearward axle path, as in all of the travel was rearward, you could have 200 mil of travel going this way, and you wouldn't be able to absorb a single bump.
Yeah.
So the only...
Don't like Harley Davidson motorcycles have that?
It's called a hardtail.
They have like a really weird rear suspension on them.
So it basically doesn't absorb anything.
Yeah.
So it has to ride over the bump. So basically I measure vertical travel.
Okay.
And they're pretty, like, brands are pretty accurate now. So,
okay, that's good.
Yeah. So and the reason why I did that was because when you ride a bike and you say, oh, the BB feels high, the BB feels low, or whatever, relative to what? If you don't know that, if you say this bike's got 100, if it's got a lot of travel, then the BB will run lower because you run more sag. But if the bike doesn't have the travel it says it has, it might not be that it's got a high BB or a low BB. It just might not have, it might have a lot of travel. It might have 100, like those bikes I measured with like 175 mil of travel that claimed like 160.
Aren't there some like famous bikes out there that they just welded something in the wrong place on the frames and
Totally.
And like the shocks didn't fit, nothing fitted.
I mean, that happens. Yeah, if you put where you put the shock mount makes a big difference. And we've had bikes from brands where they've said, oh, you've had the only 3 bikes with that problem, and then you like think about that and you think, well, we've had 3 bikes out of all the bikes made to one place, and they're the only 3. It just can't be true. Someone
fell asleep and welded it upside down.
Yeah, totally.
That can happen. You just weld the thing the wrong way around. And
exactly, and that's the thing is that you have to. And like, I think journalists can be a bit pious and kind of like, oh, well, how can you do that? And you go, well, because there's people.
Yeah.
People make mistakes.
Yeah. I mean, I make mistakes all the time.
Exactly, and journalists make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
But we make mistakes with words.
I put a star and put it in the description.
Disclaimer, there could be mistakes in this.
Or like I write, if there's an error to correct, then I will write that in the description.
And you know what's really interesting is when I watch like some videos of other like bike media or whatever, and they make a mistake, I'll cut them, and people say, how can they say that? And you go, well, cut them slack, because when you're actually trying to think about what you're trying to say and communicate it through video, it's really easy just to muddle a word or say something back, like say it's got this because you thought it had 140 mil of travel, but really it's got 150.
Yeah.
Like, how do you can't remember all the stats on every bike ever made?
I'm kind of like getting a bit lost between battery sizes at the moment, between like 620, 630, 720, 410, 420, 430, and I'm like, oh my, because the motor market used to be 2 motors or 3 motors and 3 batteries, and now it's like,
I don't keep that information in my head. I don't care.
It's impossible to remember.
I don't. Well, why would you?
And also a 400 watt battery. It used to be kind of fairly similar. Like all the motors had the same specs basically, where a 400 watt battery or 500 watt battery sort of was the same performance, like on each motor almost. Now a 400 watt battery on a 50 watt motor is like different.
Yeah, and it's like we noticed that really early on with like Shimano batteries.
Yeah.
So Shimano batteries would have the same, let's say it was a 630 watt hour battery or whatever. You would get way less range out of that than a what would you call it, an aftermarket, a second, a different, when a brand...
Like BMZ is a brand, which is a...
Yeah, when a brand uses another battery manufacturer, and that's got to do with, that's to do with software.
Yeah.
Like battery protection software for about charge cycles and stuff like that. So like you can't always compare apples to apples, and even I think some of the German magazines, they actually measure the torque, the motor torque and stuff. Yeah, which is really good. We don't have those facilities to do that, but like I'd love to be able to do that because, and I think with the future with like people claim these numbers for it's got this amount of torque, or it's got this much peak power and stuff. And I think the future with e-bikes will be looking at those curves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see in the future is like RPM and like peak torque and like those curves are going to be like across the range for different RPM, not like just one number, like it's got 600 watts peak power.
It's interesting. So I did a video recently, which I've had to take down because I was telling how to hack. I called it hacking and they didn't like it, whereas really we were race tuning the motor. We weren't actually hacking the motor. And what I discovered in this app that we could do it with, that you could change the tune of the motor at certain speeds. Like you could choose them.
Okay.
So 0 to 10 kilometers an hour, you could change it. 10 to 15, you could change it. So you could like little steps.
But anyone can do that with the app, you're saying?
With the aftermarket app.
Okay, with
But
the
you can't do that
non-manufacturer app.
on the manufacturer app.
Okay.
You just change like response. It's just one word, and it's just more or less. But motors respond differently at different speeds. For example, we're talking about e-bikes here, obviously,
and different cadences too.
Yeah, and different cadences, exactly. So I noticed that that is like. That's a good thing because you can actually tune the bike. Because some motors, like if you pedal off up the hill, they start off, you get lots of wheel slip and a bit torquey, and then other ones are really soft, but they've got the same torque overall.
Yeah, it's just how it's delivered.
Yeah, even though you can fiddle with the apps and you try and match them to make them so these are right the same, but it still doesn't, it's not exactly the same. So
how does that work for e-bike racing?
Should we talk about e-bike racing? Or is that later in my list? Do you want to talk about e-bike racing now?
Let's talk about it now.
We'll just go straight into it. Okay. So I used to be the presenter for the UCI cross-country electric mountain bike World Cup. Okay?
What happened to that?
It's still there.
Is it?
But it's like, there wasn't that many riders. The concept was interesting. It was good. But all I saw on the sidelines was the lightest, best rider basically won.
You're basically looking at it's like a jockey.
So I find e-bike racing, and that was cross-country, so up and down, okay? But, I don't know, my question is, tell me what your thoughts are.
I don't know, I just don't see how they can make it fair.
That's my point.
I don't see how they can make it fair. And I mean, you could argue maybe that it's not fair anyway, because you can have doping. It's like electronic doping in a way, or you can have someone that trains better, you can have someone that's got better genetics, but it just seems kind of weird that you can have like a motor with 107 newton meters torque and X amount of power, and because you can change. And I think the biggest problem with e-bike racing is that it's elitist.
Elitist?
Yeah, because you need a bike with 3 batteries, and you need some kind of
3,000 extra euros or 2,000 extra pounds.
And you need kind of tech support and maybe tech support and stuff, and like you got to make sure your batteries are charged. And like I've not done an e-bike enduro race because I just don't know. That for me, that's not what I want to do on an e-bike.
You said something interesting as well. I saw manufacturers, I won't say which brand, they're giving each rider a different tune as well, like software.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so maybe it's
like plugged in.
And maybe they use that too to help develop. I mean, that's not. I don't think racing's really used to develop product. To be fair, I think racing's used to market product, and that's
even downhill.
Yeah, totally, especially downhill.
Because they always love to, you see on like magazines like the new test bike, and they've got a shock that's covered under like a Velcro.
Yeah, it's great marketing, isn't it? Because you get a load of people interested in it. It's really good marketing. And like if you think, I love downhill racing.
It's amazing.
It's fantastic, and the
riders are so amazing. I mean, how do they do that?
But it's just a great sport. Like, it's great to watch. It's like, in every year, we always talk about it at work. We're like, oh, every race was kind of more exciting than the last, and every year it's more exciting than the one before. And I think, but it's a marketing vehicle.
Have you ridden the Black Snake in Italy, Val di Sole?
I've been there. I haven't ridden.
I've ridden the trail.
I went there for World Champs to watch.
There was a bit of trail where I was following somebody called Maxi Dickerhoff, which is a German pro rider for Canyon originally. I was following him down the trail on a downhill bike. I was on a downhill bike, and I was going down there and did the first few jumps quite well going down, and then I got to a bit of the woods.
Like the top part of the track's the easy part.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Wait. I got to a bit of the track where I stopped, looked, thought, I can't do this, threw the bike down the trail.
Take it wasn't your bike.
It was Ghost. I threw the bike down the trail, walked down and around the tree because I couldn't walk down where I was supposed to ride down.
Yeah, I went there to watch World Champs.
It was insane.
Not to ride, obviously. Like, and not even to ride like around the event, just to watch the World Champs. And yeah, it's a crazy track.
So I watched that, and then I thought, well, I'm a terrible person. I felt really bad about myself. Thank goodness no one's seen me. And I thought it was me.
I thought you meant for throwing the bike down the hill.
No, just for not being able to ride it. And then looked further down, and this pro rider, enduro rider, was struggling himself. So I realised
it's a tough track.
So I then realised, oh, hang on a minute, it's not. It really is.
Yeah, but
difficult.
downhill. The thing is, I think the difference with downhill is that it's a really good spectator sport.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to televise. It looks really good. It's exciting. It's fast. It's clear who's won.
There's a story.
It's clear who's won.
Yeah.
Basically. Whereas with enduro, it's like really difficult to cover. It's really spread out, and you kind of got to wait till it's not like it's kind of you don't know who's won until like kind of the scores have been added up.
No.
Which makes it less of a. I always thought it was a really good. Regular enduro, not e-bike enduro, was a really good participation sport.
Yeah.
Like grassroots participation sport. And then I suppose with, I don't know, maybe like you got to fly all around the world. It's pretty high end.
So, I mean, it started off as like blind racing, didn't it? Like you didn't even see the track unless you were local.
Which means, and then this gets back to the e-bike thing.
So many stories I could tell you.
It's like, well, like Fabian winning the first race that won at Punta Ala, right?
That was partly my fault because I was taking him around riding the month before.
Like, not taking anything away from Fabian, he's an amazing rider, super nice guy. But like I heard from people that he was down there practicing.
Well, it wasn't just him; they were all down there.
Yeah, totally. But when you come from America to race or whatever, and this is your first time you're there, you're at a serious disadvantage. So is that any different to having a more powerful motor or a bigger racing? Maybe racing's never fair.
Well, that was the interesting thing. So I saw that event, which was quite an amazing moment in biking history to see everybody come to this new discipline, all pumped up and amped up. But I did see there the Santa Cruz Syndicate come along and just be like, they literally turned up the day before.
Yeah, that was pretty amateurish.
And they were really, they were annoyed that all the French riders had turned up a month before.
But it is kind of amateurish, right? It was, wasn't it?
I mean, it was. I saw Nico Vulio and Steve Peat rode out together, and Vulio had been there for a month. I'd seen him come down a few times and really ride it, test it, and
you need to know you're going there.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It's a place where like you can get caught out real easy.
Yeah, and it's difficult. You need to know the trails. You need to know because it's dangerous at the speed because you're still riding fast. It's not slow. And I've tried staying behind Rat Boy once on a bike, and he lost me after.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't just how much he lost me. It was like how immediately he lost me. Like we just started. We went round one corner, over down a little bit of a rocky bit, and there was another corner. And by the time I got to that other corner, I couldn't see him anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there was like 100 meters almost of trail in front of me. I was like, where has he gone? It was just incredible. And from that one bit on a bike taught me all about respect for pros and what they can do.
Well, yeah, that's why they're professional riders, right?
Yeah.
It's like they're super good at what they do.
Tell me what you think about this. So I feel like their skill level is kind of like a graph like that. So if we're here somewhere, they're like so far above us with a skill level. I mean,
well, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's a continuum, right? Everybody's on a different part of that spectrum. And even within the pros, there's some riders that are probably better bike handlers than others, but that doesn't mean they're the best racer.
It's true.
Because racing requires a certain mindset, maybe a degree of competitiveness, and maybe actually, and also not falling apart under pressure.
Yeah.
You could be the best bike handler in the world. Doesn't always translate to being the best racer.
It's true. And there's some amazing racers out there with an amazing mental toughness. You were telling me something about, was it Jerome?
Clements.
So tell me about how he was telling you how to race. Essentially,
he wasn't.
What was he saying?
He basically just said, we were at the NZ Enduro. It was at a SRAM launch thing that was wrapped in with the event in New Zealand, and it was one of the events he hadn't won.
Okay.
Yeah. So he had it pretty much wrapped up. It was in the bag, and it was on the last stage. And he said, "Hey, do you want to follow me?" And I was like, "No, not really." Like, what a waste of time. And I was like, what the hell, you know? Like, yeah, I don't even know what time of day it is. So what difference does it make? So the time went, we set off, and the NZ Enduro was pretty like it was kind of a super amazing event, but just like low key. It was really low key in a way too. It wasn't like stressy. So he was super chilled, and he set off, and I set off behind him, and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. I think I've got this, because he didn't go off like a maniac.
Yeah,
he just went off, and I was like, okay, if this is the pace, we can hang. And then maybe about 30 seconds in, or maybe even a little bit earlier, he just started to pull away. And then basically then I couldn't see him after that. I think that stage might have been like a 10-minute stage. I can't remember how long it was, but it was bone dry. So I'd see these puffs of dust, which was really useful for me because it was blind racing. But I'd known that like basically Jerome would either he tapped the brakes or he'd squared a turn or whatever. So I knew there was something coming to slow down. So even though I couldn't see him, it made my run way better than it would have been. And when I got to the end, I told him, "Hey man, I thought we were going to hang together because like I thought this is amazing. He's not gone off like a maniac." And he goes, "Yeah, you never go off like a maniac." He was like, "You basically want to build the whole stage because you need to know how long the stage is so you know how to go off."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Obviously, the longer the stage is, you go off easier."
Yeah.
And he said, "You build and you build and you build and you build and you build." And he goes, "And what you only want to be redlining just before you cross the line, because he said if you redline too soon, the wheels come off the cart, and then the last part of you, all of the rest of the stage after you redline," he said, "it'll just fall apart and you'll start losing time." So he was like, I mean, come on.
You blow up on the line. That's
Basically.
like rowing. Rowing racing was the same. Any endurance sport is like that. You're supposed to blow up on the line.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you haven't done it.
But what a cool guy. Like, Clemence was amazing.
Clemence is amazing. I went riding with him once, and I went like that on my brake. I must have touched it like just that, and he took 100 meters out of me immediately. And it was just like,
yeah, it was really cool to do that because he totally lulled me into a false sense of security.
But also I've seen him riding technical stuff on e-bikes when we've been doing the Bosch motor launch, and with a race motor, and he was riding up these technical climbs that nobody else could ride up, and he was just going.
He's got a pretty good build for riding e-bike, though, isn't he? He's a small, light dude.
Yeah, but he was.
And he's an amazing rider.
But the technicality there was another level. So are these guys helping develop bikes or not? And components?
Well, if you listen to the marketing people at the brands, they'll tell you they are.
And is it?
I don't know. I think a lot of the brands develop their bikes themselves.
Yeah.
And I think what's really happened is the bike industry's matured.
Yeah.
There's people in positions, like there are engineers and product managers in positions where they're really good riders too.
They are. I've seen.
So they can do the engineering and they can do the riding. And I think that's probably the real reason why bikes have got better. It's not really because they go and listen to the racers or they have a race team. That's marketing. And you know what? And if you want to know how I know that, like with 100% certainty, is you just got to ask where the budget comes from.
Yeah.
Where does the budget for the race team come from? Ask an engineer, he'll tell you straight up, it doesn't come from R&D because their budget's tiny. It comes from marketing. Yeah. But you've now got engineers that can ride and engineer bikes, and you've got, and nearly every brand has a guy like that now. It used to be there'd be one or two of them, and the whole level of like bike design's just been increased because you've got the industry's mature enough for maybe kids to have grown up riding, gone to college, become an engineer, and actually get a job in the bike industry as an engineer, but also as a rider.
I've seen some of them riding along on the back wheel for a long time, and I'm like, oh, you're just in inverted commas, an engineer.
No, they're not just engineers.
They're
and you know what? And because they're engineers, they'll probably ignore quite a bit of what the riders have to say.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you need to convince them. You can't just tell, oh, I like this. You're like, yeah, why? Let's see what the data says. Let's put a data log on your bike. And lots of people don't want, to be fair, a lot of riders don't want to do testing.
But isn't it true, like, even if like you pick up I've ridden a pro rider's bike once and it was just like unrideable for me. I couldn't ride it. It was just, the suspension was like a cement and it was like,
okay, so
it's just the setup was just totally alien to
so there could be two reasons for that.
Yeah.
One reason could be that you can put some riders on a bike and it doesn't matter how it's set up and they'll still go like amazingly fast.
Okay.
Like some guys don't care, like, and they don't know, they don't want to know. They have no interest. So they'll basically go after, tell the mechanic, hey, it feels like this, whatever. Mechanic will do something, they go out and they can still go flat out and win races on it. And then there'll be other riders that, unless the bike's like perfectly set up for them and like they're really into it, then they can't perform at their best. And I think they're quite different. So when you say you rode a pro rider's bike, it could be set up like and they don't care.
Yeah.
Or it could be set up for going really fast, which means a firmer setup and like they're not looking, and if it's a pro downhill bike, they want to go to hang on for maybe 3.5 minutes, so they can run a completely different setup to someone that's probably doing enduro or a leisure rider that wants more comfort, more grip, more confidence.
No, that's true. But
which is basically why your suspension setup is probably the most important thing on your bike. So does that tee you out? Does that tee you out well, does it?
Segue. This is designed by my son, by the way. Testing, favourite components. How do you know suspension is working?
Depends what you want it to do.
Okay. This is the thing. Because we've had a few, so we've been hanging around for a couple of weeks, just on the off chance, and Alan's been sending some thoughts to me about suspension setup. He had a look at my suspension setup and changed it.
But also, you're different weight to me, so like that's what needed.
But I re-rode one of the bikes you changed it to, and I liked it. So we had the Neuron on. I rode it after we'd ridden it, and that's a short travel.
Yeah, I think I went up in pressure, and then I realized I wasn't using it, and I went down again a little bit. Probably ended up just a little bit higher than you had it originally.
It felt more playful and more springy after you'd been on it than I had ridden it. Maybe because I hadn't ridden it.
But I think people are afraid to play with it.
Yeah.
Like it's this kind of black box mystery thing that like, oh, what if they're just some dials and adjusters and a pump.
Yeah.
It's not like I mean it's really basic, like in terms of like you set your pressure if it's an air shock, or your spring rate on a coil shock to get the bike to sit into the travel to the right degree. And like I think maybe what's confusing for people is there's a pretty big window. Like brands will say 25 to 35% side. That's a big range.
Yeah, it is.
And not all bikes, some bikes will work good at 26, 27, some bikes will work good at 33, and it's not universal, so that's why there's a window. And what you've got to do is go play with different shock pressures and see where the bike feels best for you.
Yeah.
And that's true of rider weight, and it's true of different bike sizes, because different bike sizes have got different weight distributions. So how you set your suspension up. I mean, I used to think geometry was probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I've changed my mind about it, because the geometry on most bikes is pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you think about when you've got maybe like a 160, 170 mil travel bike, you've got huge variation in dynamic geometry because of how much travel you have.
Yeah.
How you set your suspension up is the most important thing for how the bike handles.
So we fiddled with the shock, and then you told me, this was on the Canyon Strive-On, for example, that with a different shock company,
yeah, with a rock, instead of a Fox shock, with a rock shock.
You couldn't even get full travel.
Yeah, totally. So again, how do I say this? If you're not riding like I'm riding, on the bike that I'm riding, I mean the specific model, maybe on the same kind of gradient, on the same kind of terrain, you might not have the same experience. So it kind of like, in terms of bike testing, it's not a science.
Yeah.
It's just one dude. Like I ride the bike, I give my opinion on it. Okay, it's a qualified opinion because I have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's like gospel.
No.
And it's interesting that bike manufacturers they'll bring out a model of a bike.
Yeah.
And then they might have like 6 different shocks. Throughout the range.
No, there will be.
Well, from 2 brands at different levels, yeah? So you might have 6 totally different shocks throughout the range. And even though the brands try to tune those shocks to behave similar, similar is the key word.
Yeah.
They're not the same.
So...
And there's a good reason to do that, yeah?
Why is RockShox, I've seen RockShox a lot on the very high-end bikes. Why is that? And not Fox?
Don't know, perception, maybe. Maybe if you've got electronic suspension costs more, and if you want to build the most expensive bike, it's your top-end bike. And it used to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Like Fox would be the Fox bike might be the premium bike, and it's flipped. And it'll probably switch back again at some point. But the key thing is that there's a reason why manufacturers don't have this. Pretty much the reason why I think manufacturers don't have the same shock on every model, the exact same shock, to give the exact same behavior. It's not just about price. It's actually about not having all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Because if Fox turn around and say, hey, there's a delay, you've got no bikes to sell.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got RockShox Fox, RockShox Fox, RockShox Fox, and you've got different tiers.
Yeah.
If one of those shocks has a problem, you don't have a problem throughout your entire range.
Well, I can add to that. There's extra information about that. So I was at an Italian motor manufacturer, Ascol. You probably never heard of it.
No.
But they provide a lot of the motor windings and motor parts for Bosch.
Okay.
Because Bosch, as a big company, like source their parts.
Yeah, of course they do, yeah.
From
They don't make everything themselves.
from different people, but also to assure the supply chain.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And have different suppliers supplying the same parts.
Yeah, exactly. So you find sometimes, and that's happening now with iPhones as well. They make iPhones in India, make them in China. You know, they're trying to sort of.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see it. I wish it wasn't like that, because then you could guarantee the behavior of the bike for all models, which you can't do when you've got different shocks on them.
Well, I've been to the Fatzua production facility in Germany, and they are finishing all their motors there on the same line. But they're a smaller motor company.
And that's interesting too, because like what you said about the motors is that some e-bikes with the same motor have more rattle than the other. And some of that's the clutch, and some of that's the acoustics of the bike.
Yeah.
Like the down tube, the way the rattle echoes through the frame and stuff. So yeah.
There's a lot going on.
I think the consistency thing is really important with suspension, though. Podcast sponsored by Goodyear.
No, it's sponsored by Camelback, it's sponsored by Physic, it's sponsored by Santa Cruz, it's sponsored by Fox, it's sponsored by everyone at the same time. Okay, here's a good question, mid-break. Yeah, we get a lot of test product, no? So the question is, all the things we get to test, do you have a favourite bike? Do you have a favourite, like, you know, accessory package that you like to use, like particular?
Not really.
Is there? So there's nothing as like stands out to you as like above everybody else.
No, not really. And I'm not that. I don't know. I suppose because I might never ride the same bike twice. As in, I will ride the same bike more than once, but I might ride it. But before I get back to that bike, I might ride 3 other bikes to go back to the first bike, and so I'll do that. And if you want to talk about how I test, is that I'll change the order. If I've got 4 bikes on test, I'll change the order in which I ride them. So they'll go into the van one way and they'll come out the opposite way, because your fatigue affects what you think of a bike.
It's true.
How warmed up you are affects what you think of a bike. Yeah. So if you always test the bikes in the same order, you're introducing a bias. So you kind of have to jumble it up a little bit. So
because the first time down a new trail, maybe you don't even know, on a new bike, and you can feel like it could either be amazing or shocking.
I wish I was riding new trails all the time. I ride the same trails a lot, and people say to me, "Hey, you know," people they might sometimes go, "Hey, can I come out with you?" And I'm like, "You don't want to come out with me," because they get bored of this. Yeah. They're going to go like, "What? You're going to ride the same track 15 times?" I'm like, "Yep." And I don't want to do that. Of course you don't. You want to go for a ride loads of different trails and have loads of fun. But I have a job to do.
Yeah, I have the same loop as well.
I have a job to do. So I come out and I'm pretty methodical about it. Set the tire pressures have the same tires on the bikes, ride the bikes, pick a couple of different tracks, pick tracks that have different styles of thing, try to ride in different conditions. You know, like I said, it's not an exact science, but there's things you can do to kind of help you ascertain the differences between the bikes you're testing. Yeah. And that's the thing that I'd say, that when you see a lot of these, you see a lot of standalone reviews. Yeah. And I can tell you they don't have the same weight as a group test.
But you need a lot of time for a group test, is what you said earlier.
You do. It's a massive task. It's a pain in the ass, yeah. And that's why you don't see a lot of them, because if you have 4 bikes to test, but what it does do is it gives you parameters into reference points to compare your product to without relying on your memory, because your memory's not reliable. Yeah. You know, like that's why back you can't. When we were out the other day, and I said there's nothing beats riding with someone else and swapping between the 2 test bikes.
We did that.
And then swapping back really quickly again.
And we didn't have to do any setting changes. We just rode.
Because within 3 or 4 corners you can adapt to the bike. So you really can't rely on your memory that much. It's really good to feel it firsthand, and that's why I don't have maybe favorite products and favorite bikes, is because you ride a lot of different stuff. You adapt to it really quickly. Yeah.
I mean, so the favorite bike thing is like, even for me, I think the favorite bike. Everyone always asks me.
But what for? Like
Well,
with
they
a favorite
want-
bike 4 watt.
most
Sorry,
people-
4 watt is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like,
I mean, that's always my question. It's like lots of people always ask me, send me messages on socials, like asking, what do you think of this bike? You know, and they give me an opinion, and I say, well, what are you doing? There's always my question: what are you riding?
Yeah.
What's your budget? You know, it's like it's.
I don't have that problem because I'm not on social media.
Yeah, you're not on social media. So, but it's like, I actually like connecting with the public like that because I'm quite small. On my personal stuff, it's quite small.
Me too, but I'm just not on it, so it's like.
But I like connecting with the public in public as well.
If you approach me and ask me, I'll tell you about it. Like,
brilliant,
it's like no problem. It's like
because a lot of people's like dreams are tied up in the emotion of that purchase they made. You know, they studied, because I don't know a single rider who just bought a bike without thinking about it. I think
it's a big investment because bikes are expensive.
people are really caring and they're reading and listening and they really want to make sure that what they're doing is
If you're going to
good.
drop, what do you got to drop on an e-bike between 4 to 6 to get an entry level bike, depending on the brand.
Yeah.
If you want to get like a
Even to medium level or
I mean, it's like so. They're like, I mean, an e-bikes have definitely pumped the price of bikes up a lot.
Yeah.
Whereas even like like if you want to get a good trail bike that's not an e-bike, you're looking at maybe 1,500, $2,500. It's not nothing.
No, it's a lot of money.
You know what I mean? Especially if you're younger. And
It's a lot of money.
And it's like, it's a big deal. So
You can buy cars for that price.
and you'd research your car, wouldn't you? Even if it's a
Yeah.
second-hand car.
Yeah.
So
And you'd be looking at multiple models similar to understand which spec and everything. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So people really care. So I find myself, when I answer, I'm very mindful of the emotional connection people have when they've spent their money, and I don't want to like make them feel bad about what they bought. Because sometimes it's an opinion, and I'm not wrong.
yeah, but then some people just want to buy. Like they have brands do good jobs do a good job at marketing, and some people just buy into a brand, and like it doesn't matter. It's like if they just like I'll jokingly tell people just buy the one you like the color of.
Yeah.
Because that's well seriously because I could tell them. Okay, like what bike do you ride now? Okay, you ride this. What do you like about it? You like that about it. Okay, well you want to buy a bike that's got like maybe a little bit longer reach, but not too much longer because it's going to feel too weird. Okay, you want this much travel. Okay, you want this. You like the characteristics. You climb a lot. Okay, you want this. You give them all this information, and then you see them like a month later, and they're on a completely different bike.
That's true.
So I'm just like, get the color you like.
Yeah.
It's like, why not? And you know what?
Isn't black?
Information and trying to kind of analyze what bike would be good for them, and then I just basically go and buy the color you like. But realistically, actually, what is good advice is buy the bike for 95% of the ride you're going to do, not the 5% that you aspire to do.
Which is like the whole big battery problem. So on the new modern e-bikes, lots of people are obsessed about range, and I've been asked many times to quote it for different magazines, and I always say, okay, I can quote it based on my weight, my riding conditions, and where I ride, the altitude.
The tires you're running, the temperature.
Yeah, 2,000 meters, different battery range to down low, because you're like, maybe...
Well, it's temperature, probably.
Temperature, yeah. If you're colder at 2,000 meters, you're 20 degrees colder than you are at 0. It's because it's 1 degree for every 100 meters normally of temperature change. And so 2,000 meters, so you're suddenly, instead of riding, you normally only go up there in summer, but it'll be like 10 degrees, 15 degrees. So battery life changes quite significantly. And so I never really quote battery range, and I think it's almost the most useless piece of information you can give. Because they're so wide.
Well, or you could do it properly. So basically, what you have is you have a range test. You have a loop that you do in set conditions, or what you do is that because you obviously can't do it over an extended period of time because you have to wait maybe till it's like the same temperature in September 2025 to do it again. But you can basically take 5 bikes out. You put the same tires on all the bikes. So basically, the tires really impact the range.
Yeah.
You charge them, and you also have to be careful. Like if you charge them, you keep them in the same place when you're charging them.
Yeah.
So you charge them in the same place, and you take them out of the same place, like maybe like in the hallway or something of where you're staying.
So they're the same temperature.
So it's the same temperature, and then you basically lap them out. And I'm telling you, people think, oh, that sounds like an amazing thing because you get to do a ton of riding. By the time you're on the third or fourth bike range testing it, you're praying for the red light to come on.
You don't want to do it. You hate it.
You're just totally... And this comes back to what you said about the big batteries. So the Canyon Spectral On, I've ridden it with the 900 in it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever drained it.
No, I still have. The other day, I thought I was going to drain it, and I didn't.
I don't think I've drained it because
And I was turboing all day, like super lazy mode, barely feet on the pedals. I was exhausted that day, and
because it's physical. Because you get a lot of, you gain a lot of altitude, and because the bikes are a bit heavier and they require a bit more muscle to maneuver, I get and I ride them hard. Because like you sort of like attack every trail because you're fresh, because you're not knackered from going up the climb. I find I can't drain a 900.
Well, this is where I think Lapierre did a really good job with their GLP2, where they were selling the bike with a 500 and a 300. So you had the 500 or the 300 based on your range, and then they did it so that you didn't have to have a massive battery, but you could still have range. It was only available, I think, on the high-end version they sold it with. But it was like, and they sold it with a battery pack, a backpack as well. You could even put the battery in it. I've got the backpack.
Yeah, so I would say a 500 is not enough.
Yeah.
I'd say that happy medium 750, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty, like the batteries are still pretty big, but they're not like the whole length of the down tube. You know, they're a little bit lighter than the 900s. You don't have to design the bike around this big, massive chunk of battery.
There are some bikes out there I've seen with a 900 in line with the motor.
Yeah, well, basically, it's motor to head tube. It probably affects the size of the bike.
Yeah, it makes it look enormous.
And but like I can drain a 500. It's not enough.
Yeah.
And then it's what we were talking about when we were out riding. It's like people think that you've actually got to be. It's counterintuitive, but you've got to be really fit to ride the 900.
Yeah. Because otherwise yours is going to be all very, very heavy.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like you got to be a big dude.
Rider.
Big dude. Big
Doesn't
rider.
mean fat. It means heavy.
Yeah, like, big. Yeah.
Like 110.
Powerhouse. You could be 110 kilo powerhouse.
Like if you take some of the top pro riders from downhill, they are 100 kilo riders. They're massive. They're on XLs with the bikes extended, and
But so I think really like it's like the 900 watt hour batteries they're cool, and you'll probably get like there'll probably be like 1,000 at some. There's 1,000 ones already, aren't there?
Yeah.
So like it's I wouldn't get suckered into it. I think
now you
I
get
think
the Bosch the extender now for the 750. So it's 250 extender with a 750, so you're up to 1,000 watts.
And if the bike's designed properly, not properly, that's the wrong way to say it, but if the bike's designed around the range extender and the range extender can sit low, so basically where the bottle cage goes and the range extender, actually instead of being halfway up the down tube, it's actually down at the bottom of the down tube, right on top of the motor.
You need a shock that sits up high.
Yeah, you've got to have a high shock design for it. I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because that's probably better. Well, no, it is better. It's better than having that extra weight for extended along the battery and sat on your fork.
Is there a price? Have we ever worked out a weight per 100 watts?
I think Danny's done some calculation on that. He worked out per weight per.
Like the densest one I think is the new
hours.
SRAM battery. The new SRAM battery's got more density.
I think
per
Giant
100
claimed.
watts.
I thought Giant claimed their battery was more dense. I don't know. Like I mean, and the thing is, and then what does it mean? So you could have a SRAM battery that's what is it? Is it 750? Is it 700? 720? I don't remember what it is.
720. Yeah.
Whatever it is. But it could give you less range than a 700 from Specialized. I don't know. It's like the batteries. You can't.
Range is an interesting one. So also there's another thing somebody told me once as well. Depending on the charger you charge and this is true because I know this from
high-speed charger versus
from radio controlled car days. Like basically, if you got 2 amp chargers, 4 amp chargers, a 4 amp charger charge a lot quicker than a 2 amp charger, but it won't charge it the same. Now, I have no idea about the physics of exactly what that means on an iron level inside the battery. Maybe you know?
The analogy people use is basically stacking books in a bookshelf.
Okay.
So basically, it takes time to stack books in a bookshelf really neatly and really ordered. Whereas if you just throw the books at the bookshelf, that's the fast chargers throwing the books at the bookshelf.
Okay, so that can affect the life
and what you get from the battery.
Yeah. So
and the other thing that no one really talks about is motor efficiency.
Yeah, that's true.
So you can have you could have 2 bikes with 750 watt batteries that are identical.
Yeah.
That's let's just, in theory, they're identical. You have 2 motors that have the same 85, 95 newton meters torque, 600 watts peak power. One motor is more efficient than the other one. That's the one that's going to give you the most range.
Yeah. That's true. And I know even the cells, people don't talk about this much, brands don't, but there's only like 5 or 6 high quality cell providers like Sanyo, Tesla. There's like, 5 or 6 of them. And all these top motor companies battery makers will go to those to get. But they also, cells were like they're manufactured, stored in a warehouse, and you'll have the earliest examples that have just been produced, and you have ones that were produced a few months ago, and they have different cost. So
because of the life of the cell.
Yeah. So
not
the ones that have been sat there for a while will be like cheaper.
Well, a bit like the ones at the supermarket. This veg is about to go out of date, and you get your courgettes.
Yeah, exactly.
You get your courgettes for half price.
And that will affect the pricing of
that makes total sense.
your battery. And this is what I've heard, so I can't, without seeing it with my own eyes, I can't confirm it. But there's allegedly how it works. So
are most of your viewers like e-bike riders?
So a lot, 90% probably.
Okay.
And my mum. Hi, mum.
Do your mum watch this, she? Hi. Hi, Alex's mum.
And my kids.
Your kids are cool, though.
Yeah.
I'm not saying your mum's not cool, but your kids are cool.
My mum rides e-bike.
I don't know what you want. Normal mountain bikes. I don't know. For me, they're all normal mountain bikes. I don't really care what
Traditional.
I don't care what you call them. Yeah. So.
Analog.
We just call them analog because it keeps it simple.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people change their analog bike every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So if does your e-bike have to last 10 years? Is anybody going to ride it? I think it should.
It should, because otherwise it's a giant piece of e-waste. It's like the worst thing for the environment. Carbon and electric component.
I absolutely think it should, but I think if you look at an e-bike from say 4 years ago compared to an e-bike today, there's been quite a big progression in terms of like geometry, in terms of handling, in terms of motor response, in terms of and although they're more reliable, they're still not super reliable.
No.
Like that's the biggest problem I think with e-bikes is that if the damn thing doesn't work, man, like it's useless.
Yeah.
If it doesn't turn on, it's useless.
It's annoying. It's happened to me a few times, and I've discovered even some problems. So here's a good one from Shimano that nobody will tell you. So you take your battery out of the bike whilst you store your bike, okay? Mm-hmm. And Shimano has quite a good, I'd say quality components and everything. And then you come back, you put it back in, you press your power button to turn it back on and turn on. You're like, what's going on? Well, there's a battery inside the power switch which is discharged, and you cannot switch it on.
Okay, without.
But you can, but you've got to turn it on from the battery.
Okay.
But the power switch to turn it on from the battery, if it's an internal tube battery, is in the frame. So how do you do that?
Well, you have to take the motor off and.
Yeah, you have to take the motor, or like I rigged it up. I had a little bit of string with a little couple of weight taped to it. So I slid it down the motor, and then where it would fit, and then I pulled it. So it pressed the button.
I noticed a lot of your bikes had tape on them.
Yeah.
Tape around the bottom, tape around the thing. There's a lot of masking tape on your bikes, basically.
But
they all worked. They all worked. To be fair.
Honestly, I think electrical tape, which costs €1.50 for a rod, is one of the most useful things to have as an e-bike owner, because so many things need taping up on them. Like remotes, I really think we're in 2023, 13 years on from the first e-bike.
2024, man. This is the second.
Sorry,
can we date the podcast?
2024.
This is the 2nd of January, 2024.
We still don't have a good remote.
That's not true.
You don't agree? I don't have a remote, which I think this is, well, maybe the Shimano.
The Shimano one's pretty robust. The Specialized one's quite robust.
But the rest of them,
they're quite big, and they're not wireless, but they're robust.
But it's the robustness, because we fixed a bike because we had a puncture. We switched it upside down to do it on the trail.
Which you're not supposed to do. But how do you get the wheel out of an e-bike?
So there's a few little practical things which designers I still think need to look at on elements of which we're going on about reliability of bikes and components. So, and there's a lot going on there there's some quick little hacks you can do to stop things breaking. But it's I think e-bikes, you're right, are sensitive. They're still and I'm always panicking about, will this turn on? Because sometimes they just randomly don't.
Yeah, no, you don't know what to do about it.
And you've got to go and find a dealer. You go to the dealer and they say, oh, we can't do it. We have to send it back.
So what are you going to do with your Canyon bike if that stops working?
You send, because it's...
There you go. Well,
Wait.
Man, how many segues do I? You're meant to be the host here. Come on.
Build on conversation.
You're meant to be the host.
Direct sales or bike shop.
There you go. There you go. Oh, you did that on purpose, did you?
But that's an important point.
What do you do?
What do you do?
Like in the UK, we've got this. Haven't
they got an agreement now?
Canon's got
Yeah.
HQ in the UK in Surrey,
Yeah.
so like you could turn up at their door probably pissed off with your bike. Like seriously, you could.
Yeah.
But like what?
You can do that in Koblenz. You can go there and take bike.
Quite a drive from Tuscany. Isn't it?
I know, but I'm talking Germany, middle of Germany,
Yeah.
where the confluence of the Rhine and another river.
I don't know.
whatever.
You did geography, so
But,
like,
yeah,
I'd expect you to know that.
You can turn up there and they'll do your they'll have a look at your system or whatever if you need to turn up. But the point is,
that would be really cool if you could kind of have some. Like if you could do diagnostics yourself on your phone, obviously not to fix your bike, but at least work out. Like, I mean, is there a loose? Is it just like? So I had a YT with the Shimano, a Shimano equipped YT. I mean, they're all the YTs are Shimano motorbikes, and the only way the cables plug in to the display.
Yeah.
The back little.
It's just like it looks like
plug and play. Like so they're super cool because you can just connect.
They
them
are actually the best connectors out there.
They're good connectors, but whatever way this bike had been wired, when you turned the bars, it pulled out, and then eventually it pulled out in the frame.
Oh no!
So like the battery had to come out, the mount for the battery had to come out. We had to go in. Like
does the headset have to come out as well?
No. It was. You could get to it, but it was a pain in the ass. But it'd be really cool if you could just look at the app, and it would go, yeah, that cable there is disconnected because I know that those wires plug into the screen. Mm-hmm. But if you bought your first e-bike and you don't know whether you've got Shimano, Bosch or whatever, you don't know that they're plug and play wires. But if you could just plug into the app and the app would say, oh, wire B missing from thing, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, because in cars, the CAN bus, which is the term which people don't know about so that's the connection system that inside the car.
I bet some of your readers or some of your viewers know about that.
Yeah, they would know about that. But,
there you go.
But the CAN bus would be like, it will tell you have a high resistance value on, and it'll say it, because if you go to most garages, they've all got...
And the thing is, the manufacturers, I'm sure they have those diagnostic tools, but it'd be really cool if there was a bit more like that in the app and it wasn't just like, I don't know, the usual BS.
I mean, if we're getting into real diagnostics, like jet engines on airplanes are permanently connected to the manufacturer's computers, and they will often tell the companies that there's a problem before they even know there's a problem. Yeah. So I don't see why that couldn't be possible in a connected e-bike, because...
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be through your phone, couldn't it?
It could just transmit and say...
It'd be through your phone, through your app, and you give them the rights to it. And
a few kilobytes, and they'll monitor your system and tell you how to manage it. I mean, it's possible,
No, like you're changing gear like an idiot.
Oh, good segue.
Yeah.
So what about the automatic shifting?
Oh, you can watch my whole video on MBR. Daniel, I did one. Yeah, just you can link it in the description.
I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, I just think like electronic gears are cool. Yeah. But they ain't gonna change. They ain't gonna change your, they're not gonna change your life. So like if you wanted a list of priorities, electronic gears would be pretty far down my list.
Yeah.
Like tires are probably the most important thing to get right.
I agree.
For what you want from them. So if you want rolling speed, if you want traction, if you want puncture resistance, there's tires.
I go for puncture resistance. That's one of my top.
Well, totally. You live in a rocky environment. Whereas like if you ride in Surrey and it's kind of loamy and rooty, well, you might never get a puncture. But you ride up north somewhere in the UK, you want puncture resistance because you want to be able to run the tire at a pressure. So
you don't dent the rim every time.
And a pressure that's right for the rider in the same way that your suspension has to be set for the right pressure for the weight of the rider. So tires are probably the most important thing. Suspension and tires work together. Your geometry, most bikes are pretty good geometry as long as you buy the right size. Your brakes are obviously really important. You want really good brakes. And
what's your preferred brake?
What's my preferred brake?
Preferred doesn't mean best.
My
it means your preferred
brake
for your general riding that you like.
I actually think that the New Hope, the Tech 4 V4, is that the full model name? Yeah. That's a really nice brake. And you know what I like about it? So I really I don't fly any flags.
No.
I come from a place where there's too much flag flying, right?
Yeah.
So I don't fly a flag. But what I do like is I like Hope's ethos.
Yeah.
Like we talk about disposable e-bikes.
Oh, it's totally replaceable, everything, isn't it?
You can have those brakes for 20 years and like a part will break and you'll be able to call them up and they'll have a part for it. That's
including the old school
and
brakes.
there's none of this, what's the US called, the right to repair? None of this fucking marketing bullshit around it. It's just what they do. And it's amazing. And I always really liked that about Hope, but I never really liked the brakes because they didn't have enough power.
Yeah.
The nice feel, great modulation, not enough power. New brakes, fixed.
Really?
So you've got all that backup, all the support. That would be like, but then they don't come on many bikes.
No, they're an aftermarket thing. They cost,
yeah, they are.
How much are they? About 500 for a set?
And you're talking euros or pounds? I'm not sure how much they cost.
Quite a lot.
But they're
But then you need the good discs with them. And
but then they won't end up in the bin in 6 months' time.
that's true.
Like some brakes.
Yeah, and also, but one thing about Hope, once I found, because their discs are amazing, but they get on the frame and they were touching the, they would rub against the, because they had these floating.
Oh, the floating rotors.
Yeah, they would touch the frame, not even the adapter. They were touching the frame, so I had to like. Well, I was on a bike.
But yeah, the new brakes are like they're really good. But like, I just like brakes. Brakes have to be consistent. Like I'll straight up like I don't know if I can say this, but okay, I'll try and say it so we don't get into trouble. So we don't get into trouble. Yeah. If you had brakes in a car, that when you pushed the pedal, yeah, it behaved differently at different times, yeah, you'd recall the car.
You would.
That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. So my favorite.
So I like brakes that don't change when you pull the lever, right?
Formula Cura.
Okay.
I'm quite impressed by those.
Yeah, I just think, and the thing is, as long as they're consistent, as long as they have enough power and they're consistent, and with e-bikes, you need more brakes. Bikes are heavier. Like it was really cool is that, like you sort of realized that like 220 for for downhill or whatever, it sounds like a lot of brake, but when you've got a bike that's 10 kilos heavier than a bike you're used to riding, that's like me being 10 kilos heavier on an analog bike.
So a big disc.
So I need more braking power because I've got more mass to slow down.
Yeah, no, the big discs. The only problem is if you get cheap big discs on those bikes, the brakes, for example, I've noticed they bend a bit.
Yeah, pads make a huge difference. So I think that's so we've got, what did we say? We said tires, suspension, geometry, and I explained earlier why I think suspension is actually more important than geometry because geometry is pretty well dialed.
Yeah.
Then what do we have? We have brakes, and maybe brakes comes further up that. I don't know, but they're the things that you want to focus on. Your gears, as long as you've got the gearing, the correct gearing for the terrain you're riding, and the gear shift.
Yeah.
And they shift consistently.
NX is fine for me.
Well, you know, it's I'd
rather have good brakes and
I really hope
shifting.
SRAM don't phase out mechanical GX.
Yeah.
Because it's great.
But we were
great. It's a great group set.
But we were talking the other day. Had an electric shifting and we had a non-electric shifting, and the non-electric shifting was faster than the electric shifting.
It can be, yeah.
We were like, click, and it was like, and we were like, wow, that's electric. That's not electric. That's mechanical.
Yeah, totally.
And the electric shifting, which is sold on speed and precision and everything, was slower. And we were like,
Yeah,
you know?
I just think it's cool. It's got no cables.
That's cool. Maintenance-wise, easier, whip it off on all that stuff.
But okay, but what you trade like, do I change a cable once a year, or do I charge a battery, or how many times do you have to charge it?
They say it lasts 500 hours. Or?
I don't know. I mean, my bikes sit around because, like I said, I never ride the same. I very rarely ride the same bike back to back.
Yeah.
So I'll take a bike and I'll go to ride it, and the seat post won't go down, or the gears don't shift. Or
you know why that often is? Because you've over-tightened.
No, it's not. It's because
the seat clamp. I've done that so many times.
It's because the battery is a rechargeable battery, and the bike's been hanging on a hook for 4 or 5 weeks, and it's decharged.
So how would you solve get your seat clamp bolt just right, so that the seat post still goes up and down, but it doesn't like move inadvertently?
Well, you just go bit by bit until it stops and still doesn't do it. It's like that's it. Or you could be smart and use a torque wrench.
Yeah.
And like if you know that like 4 Newton meters of torque doesn't do it, maybe you need 4.5 or 5. It's like you can use a torque wrench.
But that's definitely a thing to think. But we didn't actually get finished direct sales of bike shops because we're talking about your official job description I've seen is like bike preparer. So you have a lot of mechanical experience.
Who says bike preparer?
Preparer, test repair.
Bike test editor?
It says bike test editor, and I saw bike preparation.
Well, I do. Well, okay.
Because or did you tell me that?
I told you I don't have a mechanic.
You are the mechanic.
I'm my mechanic.
So you do everything. So what you take as second nature, when you're out in public and you're with people riding, do you feel that what you know, do you feel like everybody knows that? Or is there still like
I think
so go back to direct sales and bike shops.
I think riders are really well informed.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're super well informed, like you said, and you know why? Because you said bikes are quite expensive. People do research.
Yeah,
it's a big deal to buy a bike. You don't want to buy the wrong one.
No.
And I don't care what anybody says. Everybody says all bikes are good. Some bikes are gooder than others. Okay, that's what your kids would say, right?
Yeah.
It's like they are.
Some bikes are giga, and some bikes
totally. Or mega.
Mega.
Yeah, totally. It's true. It's like, but yeah, I mean, that thing with, I think back, so we actually split I flip-flop on this basically, because I don't know which way is right to do it. Like, you could argue, if you've got $3,000 to spend on a bike, do you care where it comes from? Okay, you've just got $3,000, it doesn't matter, yeah? That's how we've done it like that in the past. We currently do it, and I make this decision. We currently basically we separate. When we do a trail bike of the year test, for example, the year test. Yeah. So we got trail bikes, analog bikes.
Yeah.
We do shop bought and we do direct sales, and we do them separately.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's not just, there's some method to the madness, right?
Yeah.
2 reasons is that basically it splits the test. So it makes it manageable.
Yeah.
Because the only test you'll see us do where we maybe have like a large number of bikes are 500-pound hardtails. Because they're freaking
the most sold bike.
No, they're really easy to test. With them, like the winning bike is like within maybe 20 minutes. The winning bike's obvious. Yeah. They're not high-end enduro bikes. You don't need to take days and weeks to set them up.
But are they the most sold bike though? The one the consumer will
probably the biggest numbers. Yeah, I mean our videos do huge numbers on those tests, but it's like
really
so you split it into 2 categories because it means then you can split the test into 2 categories. You can give a tester to each category, so you have one guy only testing 4 bikes, not one guy testing 8 bikes, so you can test them more. Yeah. And also, what my thinking is that the guy that buys a direct sales bike knows what he wants.
Yeah.
He just wants to know the best direct sales bike. He's already decided. I've had a few bikes. I looked at the spec on these bikes, and these bikes look really good. They're really well made. The geometry is exactly what I want, and I get Fox blah 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 level suspension for 25% less than if I go to a shop.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe he knows how to fix a bike. Maybe he knows how.
Confident with his tools.
Confident. Maybe, or maybe just wants a good deal. You get a better deal, right? So I actually think and I could be totally wrong on this. Yeah. I think that maybe your viewers can like chime in on this, but I actually think they're different customers.
Yeah.
So that's why we separate it. And it's convenient for me because it means, because I only get 4 bikes in the back of the van. Okay? Yeah. So we can separate and we do 2 tests.
Yeah.
So I get more, or whoever's testing the bikes gets to focus on the 4 bikes or the 5 bikes, not the 15 bikes. I mean, how are you going to set 15 bikes up? Even with a mechanic.
I even know who you're talking about who does these mass tests.
Of course you do. And you know what? They do a lot of them around here. And the pictures look real nice.
And they're nice people.
Are you going to say it?
I'm not here to call out anybody.
They're good dudes. And I'm not saying they don't test the bikes yet. I'm sure they do. I'm just saying that setting up a bike can transform how it rides.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of my this is the interesting thing about tests. I spend a lot of my time chasing my tail.
Yeah.
So I'll start with a setup, baseline setup. I'll kind of roughly guess a sag. I'll look at it because I've measured the travel. I might be a bit more accurate with it, blah, blah, blah. And I'll ride it. I'm not doing much when I first ride it because it's not even bedded in.
Yeah.
So if those bikes
the suspension changes as you ride it.
If those bikes are all new and you haven't put 12 hours of riding, which is actually on an analog bike, it's quite a lot of riding.
Yeah, that's a lot of riding.
Okay, do the math. If you've got 10 bikes,
you got
12 hours. Yeah.
That's 2 weeks of riding just to wear them in.
It's not even that. It's more than that. And it's like
3 weeks of riding.
So I'll basically just ride. I'll just ride them around.
Yeah. I do that. I go shopping with the test bikes. I know it sounds absurd.
No, it's not. It's a good idea.
I literally take them out. I ride to the supermarket. I
good idea.
lock them up outside. I always lock them. Normally I leave a kid outside watching the bike as well. So
Steal the kid, don't steal the bike. It's like, no, I'm joking.
So but I literally I'll leave the bike outside locked up, but there's somebody watching it because it's a stupidly expensive bike, and then I'll ride it around.
But you should do
25 kilometers to town and back. I do all kinds of stupid.
You need to, because basically what you're doing is like you're just basically like you would call it a shakedown.
Yeah.
And you've got to do quite a few shakedown rides, and then while you're doing that, you're kind of thinking about the grips.
Then you start hearing creaks and rattles.
Not even that. You just start thinking about the bike.
Yeah.
And then you start setting it up.
Yeah.
If you
normally I figure out that the saddle's uncomfortable.
How long did that actually takes quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
Before you even start to test it, and then what happens is you start tuning the bike to your liking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I tune all 4 bikes to my liking, what happens to the 4 bikes? They become closer. They become more and more similar because I'm tuning them to how I like them.
Yeah.
So as the test progresses, the test gets harder.
So
because you've made the bikes feel more and more similar.
Yeah.
And then if you already got the same tires on the bike, because tires, like we said, on the hierarchy of performance, it's the most important thing. So once you put the same tires on the bikes, you've already made your job harder.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, you're basically tire testing, because how can you say this bike's got more grip? Where's it coming from? Is it coming from frame flex? Is it coming from suspension? Is it coming from the tire? You don't know.
And we figured out one of the bikes that we had, a carbon one, testing, it did flex.
It does flex because you had a mark on your chainstay. And so you don't know where it's coming from, but at least if you've got the same tires on the bikes, you know it's coming from the tires. And why I've been doing that for I don't know how long. Like it's funny, someone said to me, "Oh, I really like how Pink Bike do this thing with change the tires." I'm like, "No shit. You do know how long we've been doing that for?"
I do it as well.
And it's like, the reason why I do it, and it's also the reason why I can ride clips and flats, but I test in flats. This is tied in with the tires because I'm riding a bike I don't know.
Do you ride in the same shoes all the time?
Yeah. But I'm riding a bike.
Same pedals?
Yeah, I'm riding a bike I don't know, so I don't know how it's going to behave.
Okay.
But if I know the tire, at least I know how the tire is going to behave. So it allows me to ride the bike a bit harder straight away.
Yeah.
So it speeds up the process of testing. And then also the reason why I ride flats is flat pedals give you feedback.
Yes.
So
clips you just don't feel.
No, you don't. Even though you're more connected.
I said clips. Is it clipless or clips?
Whichever. Basically, when you're attached, but you can feel more disconnected.
Yeah.
Whereas with flats, if I've got the same shoes and the same pedals and I'm swapping them from bike to bike and I'm riding the bikes, if all of a sudden
analog as well.
Yeah, I do it with all bikes like this.
Okay.
And basically, if I feel that my feet aren't as grippy on the pedals.
Yeah.
That gives me a sense of what the suspension's doing. Because I'm getting vibration that's causing a disconnect with the pedal. Whereas if I was clipped in, I wouldn't have that sensory feedback. Yeah. But I like riding both, but I test with flats for that reason.
I prefer flats because I don't like my feet feeling dead and not moving with clips, unfortunately. Like, I don't know if I've never heard anyone talk about it, but that's sort of my foot's been in the same position. Like, I like to be able to move my foot around on the pedal.
Yeah, I don't do that at all. But like, because you can
having it always in the same position makes my foot feel dead, and I feel like.
Well, you can definitely clipped in. You can charge through shit and not have to worry about your feet coming off.
Yeah.
Like it's really there's definite advantages to riding or racing clipped in. But I think for testing, I think riding flats is a really like.
Well, I've been riding flats since the 90s. Like when you'd shred your leg. You know when
they'll still shred your leg.
But then it was like deliberately designed to shred your leg.
Well, the shoes have got better, so you don't have to have such big pins. But that's it's an interesting thing about the testing process is that, and again, like you just make I'd say the kind of more time you spend doing it, the harder it becomes.
Okay.
Because the more time you spend on the bikes, because you can make the bikes do what if you know how to set them up, you can make them do what you want. And then once you've got 4 bikes that you can make do what you want, they're actually much closer than when you started. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
But then there's one more question about testing bikes. The prices of bikes.
It's super expensive. It's crazy.
We talked about this,
But they're not. Okay? They are and they aren't.
So,
because if you look at what you get for 2.5, let's say $2,000 now or $2,500 now, let's talk analog bikes. I think
Compared to 10 years ago,
we need to separate them.
unbelievable.
Yeah. The bike. It's like there's been no inflation, because the bike is so much better than the bike from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's crazy. I mean, you can buy a custom. Okay, there's a Giant hanging up in the office. We had a Yeti that went back recently. They're like 11 grand analog bikes. It's insane.
That's a lot of money. But road bikes, why do road bikes cost more when they've got less techie bits on them?
I don't know.
15,000 for like a para, what's it called? A
Pinarello?
Pinarello?
I don't know. I don't really know much about road bikes, so.
No, I don't.
I'm a specialist. But
there's so pricing across bikes and products and.
So it's like, to terms to say the bikes are really expensive is bullshit. Okay. So analog bikes aren't really, they are. I mean, you can buy a really expensive bike if you want, like it's insane. But I'd say the diminishing returns are insane. That's what's actually insane. Like
the price per kilo.
The difference between a 2.5 grand analog trail bike and a 8-9 grand one.
So back to the price of bikes. So yeah, they're expensive. The 10 grand bike.
That's what we're saying about diminishing returns. Is that like in terms of performance?
Yeah.
You'll get like at about 2.5-3 grand. I think performance starts to plateau on an analog bike. Let's talk about them separately. And then basically what you're paying for like really small improvements, like some weight saving, maybe some improvements in damping. You go from an alloy frame to a carbon frame, it saves 500 grams, 600 grams, 700 grams, whatever.
Yeah.
There's you get small changes, but the big leaps have already happened.
Yeah.
To get you to like 2.5-3 grand. So 2.5-3 grand, you get a really high performance bike.
Yeah.
So and like performance that just blows a 10-year-old bike out of the water.
Yeah.
So to say that bikes are expensive, especially in the current climate, like where bikes are heavily discounted.
40% off. I saw on Specialized Turbo Lever.
Bikes have never been cheaper. So e-bikes are more expensive, obviously, because they have
batteries.
All the e-bike bits. But what was interesting, when e-bikes first came out, the difference wasn't that big.
No.
Because I remember testing bikes and looking at it and going, okay, so it's got a battery, it's got a motor, it's got a display, it's got a thing. Why is it only £500 more, 600 or £1,000 more? Like the batteries were retailing for 700 quid, and I was like, well, the battery's 700 quid. What does all the rest of the stuff cost?
Yeah.
And I think basically that was just the reason why e-bikes were cheap initially was because manufacturers wanted to get the people on them. They wanted them to experience them.
They discounted the product.
Yeah. I think the price of maybe the e-bike systems were artificially low initially, because basically brands were taking a punt on, hey, will people be into this? Will they actually take off? Is this gonna be a thing? And then once it gained momentum, and it is a thing because they're really cool,
they recovered their investment.
Yeah, and in fact the prices jumped quite a lot.
But it's interesting because I asked
and batteries got bigger too. So bigger batteries cost more, which we all know. And all the bikes, and we all wanted bigger batteries, and we all have them, and that pushed the price of the bikes up. But I do think, in general, like given the reliability of the bikes, I think the current prices with the discount, I don't know if they'll ever go back to being what they were before.
No,
they might do, but
I mean, so I asked a motor manufacturer at a trade show for motorbikes, not cars, EICMA. How much does a motor cost? Say if I want, 3,000 units, and he told me, and it wasn't one of the top brands, it was but it was a good brand, but not top brand, and he said, it's about $250 a motor, you know? But that's just like the basic motor, no cabling, nothing. So if you add in the battery price, there's at least at a parts level to the manufacturer, obviously depends on how many units you're buying, but at least I reckon $1,000 of cost.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's more fiddly to install and build because you've got more cable time, you're paying for manual labour.
There's different standards have to be tested too, safety standards,
car standards,
electrical standards.
You can actually also, when you buy an e-bike, you can request a motor vehicle, what is it? There's a certificate which says it's a type, not type approved, but something like that. So, and it has to meet that. That's why most of the bikes, so SRAM originally developed the guide RE brake because all the bike companies needed it, otherwise it didn't meet the standards of braking for that. Because it's got an engine in it, basically. But yeah, that was an interesting point. So I know that e-bikes technically aren't cheap, and I know also as well that like I've asked them many times about, well, I want to repair my battery, and they've just said no. You know,
You definitely can't repair your own battery.
because
I mean, there's a fire risk too.
yeah,
like,
it's
for
fire
sure.
risk. And I know some and they can weld you batteries, extend your battery. They can do all kinds of crazy things to it, but
Definitely don't want to keep it in your house, though, right?
you don't want to. Yeah, but the most important thing about batteries and safety is actually the battery management system, the BMS. And some brands have very, very good ones, and that's expensive electronics, which are well designed, well tested, take a lot of time, which measure every cell constantly and keep its voltage in check. Even when your battery's just sat there off, it's being monitored. Like there is the circuit constantly running to make sure none of those cells get out of balance.
Okay.
And that's a safety feature. And there was a lot of concern from the brands when I've told them, oh, I just want to do this. And they're like, you know, because they're worried about them catching fire.
Yeah, and there are some things obviously with e-bikes that, like, the bike's heavier. So like
Shipping?
Well, no, not that. It's just that because the bike's heavier, the components have to be not designed differently, but you got to have almost higher. If you want to keep the weight in check, you can't just put basic stuff on it, or the bike gets really heavy. So there's a kind of like that, and especially like if you look at that new kind of mid-powered lightweight, if you look at the lightweight mid-power bikes, they're really expensive because super lightweight bikes have always been really expensive. They're the most expensive bikes. The lighter the bike, the more you pay.
Yeah, but they're also like not as many sold of those, so that like the numbers, they're not producing.
Yeah. They're not as big a volume. Yeah. Totally. And it'll be interesting to see if that mid-power thing, how big it becomes.
Well, we need Bosch, actually mass market, or the SX motor, because Bosch have such power from brand recognition and assurance, let's call it, from the product.
Yeah.
Because Shimano have been amazing with what they've done, especially when I actually tested the very first Shimano motor that was in Europe. I rode it in 2017. In fact, Steve Jones was there, and I read it before Steve Jones. Anyway, sorry, a little competition. And but he was there, he rode it. We both
He's made
rode
more
it.
videos than you, though, right?
No. He's older than me. So, hi, Steve, just joking. So, but basically, it was interesting because that was when we discovered, or I discovered, the Merida E160. He was there riding that bike and loved it as well. It was brand new Shimano motor, everything was new, it was all really interesting.
It was a cool bike.
It was a cool bike, but the motor used to cut out and just do crazy stuff because it overheat and all kinds of. Bosch, when they just launched a product which never, especially since the Performance CX4, it's never really gone wrong that I've ever had happen.
Yeah, people buy a bike on the motor.
Yeah.
They'll go like, they'll basically go, I want a Bosch motor. Which bikes have Bosch motors, and they'll pick the bike that has the Bosch motor.
So the new SX, which is the lightweight motor, I think that will start selling more bikes.
I don't know, because there's no such thing as a cheap lightweight bike, e-bike. So that automatically limits the numbers they can sell, because the whole price range tends to be a step higher. There isn't going to be a $4,500 or a $5,000 lightweight e-bike.
No.
Can't make it. Just can't make it. You can't make it at that price.
I mean, I think the specialized comp carbon, SL, new one.
Kenevo or Levo?
Levo. That's like €7,000.
Yeah, but it's probably over 20 kilos.
No, it's on the edge.
So for £7,000 or £8,000, you can get a Canyon that weighs 22.5, that's got 720 watt hours and full power, and you can go wherever you want. So you're like, well, hold on a second, so like I mean.
But that was a nice bike though. The Specialized was a super
It is a
nice
nice
bike.
But will they converge and just become one e-bike?
Maybe we've got to wait for battery technology to change. So if we get lighter weight batteries, because at the moment, so my optimal battery size on a lightweight e-bike, honestly, the batteries aren't. 400 watts is fine.
Yeah, the Fazua, I really like the Fazua system.
It's really good.
The Fazua system with the 430. I think the bikes I've ridden with that system, it's one of the few. I think it's probably the only lightweight mid-powered e-bike I've ridden where you don't automatically need a range extender.
Yeah.
The Bosch system is close, but I don't think it's as efficient as the Fazua system. So I think there's definitely, like, they nailed that Ride 60 system. If you're on a if you're looking for a mid-power bike, it's pretty cool. Like reliability, we haven't had, well, I haven't had a bike long term, so I don't know how long, I don't know what it's like long term.
I've had one for a while. I didn't have any problems.
In terms of performance, it's a really good performance system.
The only weakness on that system for me is the remote's a little...
yeah, it's a bit plasticky and it's fragile too.
Yeah.
But like it's easy, the little ring remote, it comes apart though, it's just magnetic, it's quite easy. It's easy to service.
Okay.
And while it feels fragile, I think it's pretty robust.
Yeah.
And I mean the Santa Cruz,
they're using
the Heckler SL. I mean, that looks like an amazing bike.
It is, and it's got a lot of views on the video I posted, and I just did a walk around. And actually, they've sold out. But you know,
hold on a second, they've sold it. Hadn't had it yet, have they?
Well, no, all the ones that ordered sold
pre-ordered.
out. Pre-ordered, sold out. But what was interesting was the bike shops, back to our little discussion before, were complaining that Santa Cruz launched this bike when they hadn't sold the other bikes.
But they didn't have a lightweight bike.
No, they didn't, because they were stressed because they couldn't shift the old stock.
Well, also they're American.
Yeah.
They were behind the curve.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure they'll admit that. Like Santa Cruz came to the e-bike party pretty late.
But they came well. When they arrived well.
Yeah, but come on. I mean, all the hard work, the hard yards have been done by everybody else.
Yeah. But the Heckler was a good bike, the first Heckler.
That new SL, I think, and also what I've noticed with the SL is that the bikes aren't cheap.
Have you got one on test soon?
I hope so. I hope, because it looks really cool.
Yeah.
But the pricing's they've been aggressive.
Yes,
they're aggressive on the pricing.
Yeah.
Because again, they're coming to it late, and also maybe being part of a bigger group allows them to be more competitive with the pricing. But it looks, that bike could be the one if you want a mid-power bike.
But what do you think about bikes where they suggest that you should take out the battery before you go for a ride?
Well,
sorry, hello. I know they're out there.
So what was funny? They must transition. Just call them out. And again, it's an American brand, right? So in America, there's this problem about like about access, yeah. So you can't ride here on a motorized vehicle. And obviously it's a bicycle, it's not a moped, whatever. You don't need a license to drive. So I don't know what the regulations are in America. But
class 1. It's a class 1 bike.
So basically they're kind of saying, well, you could take this out and ride it around as a normal bike. Who the hell is anyone that's ever ridden an e-bike will tell you that's insane.
I don't really get it.
No one's done it. No one's ever done it. No one will do it.
Have you ever pedaled an e-bike home after running out of battery?
It's just throw it in the bushes. I'm joking.
Yeah, take it to the nearest waste is e-waste disposal.
No, it's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
Even a lightweight one.
I had to ride up a 500-meter hill with a Shimano motor and a dead battery, and I was swearing all the way.
And also, you're smoked because you've just been riding with assistance, riding like a maniac for like 2 hours or whatever, and you're knackered. So basically, it happens at the worst possible time. So when we were out the other day, we talked about strategies.
Yeah.
And I knew you had a 900.
Yeah.
And I was on a bike with was it 720? 750? 750? Because one of your bikes, I have no idea what's in it.
Yeah.
And I kept it in a lower power mode.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to get caught out. Because you had more power than me. And you were cruising in turbo chatting, and I kept it in a little bit lower power mode.
You were stressing. I
let my legs work a bit more. And then at the end of the ride, when I knew we did that last run up to go down El Restaurante.
Yeah.
Amazing shot. I was just like, bang, turbo. Because now I almost got like a second wind by the time we got to the top, because I actually got a rest on the climb because I was using the motor to full power. And then like once we dropped in the trail, I'm like, okay, I feel great again. Because I made the mistake of going out, this turbo feels amazing, I'll rally up here, and then the
voltage drops off, so the power support drops off.
And also I get more tired, and then someone else is riding a bike when they've been sensible and they crank up the power. And then I'm like just breathing out my ass, basically. So.
No, battery management, energy management, it's interesting on an e-bike. It is something. I mean, that's why the big battery can be kind of cool. You can just cruise around and not worry about it.
Yeah.
But again, I was doing that, and then I got to a point I thought, I might finish this battery, because the battery I've got is old. It's got 3,000 kilometers on it. So I'm like, maybe I haven't got as much capacity as I thought I had. But I still didn't flatten it.
I mean, that's the cool thing about what you're doing, is that it's got 3,000 kilometers on it.
Yeah.
I would never put 3,000 kilometers on a bike. I test too many bikes. It's basically, you test less bikes than I do.
Yeah.
So you spend more time on the same bikes. So it's kind of all your bikes are like long-term test bikes.
Yeah.
And what I do is really, it's performance testing.
Yeah.
It's all straight up. Like I can't, like people think I ride all the time. I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of cool that you've got that mileage on a bike.
I mean, one of my test
you,
bikes had 10,000 kilometers on it because I lent it to my, well, it was here, but it was with my neighbor, and he ended up buying it because he was so happy with riding that bike. So the company benefited in the end. But it was a great test because it showed that the motors can really take it. You know, they can go a long way. And 10,000 kilometers is a lot. And they did that in about 4 months. This is like a few years ago now. But
what do you mean he was riding every day during COVID? It's like,
something like that.
Yeah, probably. That's when I bet it was, yeah.
But it was like, but the point is the bike really proved the motor was brilliant. It didn't miss a beat and it was no problem. And then so here's the other one. The controversial one out there was the original Specialized motor from Bros had the second version. It had a
turbo lever.
Yeah, turbo lever. It had a belt problem inside them, which they fixed and they changed it. But my ones didn't. They never broke.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, why didn't they? Then I lent it to my friend. He rode it around the car park and it broke immediately. Yeah. So I think it was like how you use the bike. I run with a higher cadence. I'm looser. I'm nicer to the bike.
Yeah, so, maybe. But also it depends.
Well,
like you mentioned earlier about overheating.
Yeah.
Like the TQ motor can overheat on the lightweight bikes. You get it. No, I haven't had it either.
Oh, you haven't had it?
No, but I know it happens.
Okay.
But I've had it from people in California. You have it from people like so. You live somewhere warmer than the UK. You have different. So like it has a different effect on the product.
Like mud and water ingress here is not really a problem. Dust,
especially if you don't ride when it's raining.
Yeah, dust really is. So the biggest thing I've noticed with bikes is creaks. Because
your bike was creaking like crazy.
Yeah.
That Strive On was creaking like
but
crazy.
But that's fine dust particles.
It's just getting into the pivots
and everything, and it just creaks. You've almost got to strip the entire bike, clean out every surface.
I can tell you've never done that.
I have done it on some bikes.
No, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
But you've got to strip it out, clean it all out, like get out those really fine particles, which just, I mean, you can keep spraying oil in there, but then more grease and dust.
You never have that problem in the UK.
No, it's a nightmare. It's because of dust. Other ones it does it with is like brake. No, it's the bolt on the shock bolts. They often creak a lot.
Yeah.
Even if they're done up properly, dust.
Yeah, dust will do that. Like
and it's just annoying. And it's like, so I have a dust problem going on, which is totally different to the UK, which is a water problem.
But that's, but I mean, I'll straight up, like, I have no problem admitting that when you have especially when we had the magazine, we were working on like a monthly 4-week cycle, and they have a test in every issue. It's like, it's not a reliability test.
No.
And then at no point do we say it was. That's why we had long-termers in the mag. So we had people on long-term test bikes for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, riding them regular, so that you kind of like highlight some things, some issues that customers who bought the bikes would maybe come up with, because they ride their bike a lot more than I ride the test bikes.
Exactly.
And we're not looking, and that's why like you don't maybe get a lot of the problems in. You might read a test and there's not tons of problems in it.
No.
Because bikes are generally like, if you're testing for 4 weeks or 8 weeks, let's say you split the test over 2 issues and you're doing it for 8 weeks, you're not going to, unless there's something really wrong with it, like you're not going to break the bike. And bikes are pretty, like,
that's pretty strong.
E-bikes aside, normal bikes are pretty reliable.
Yeah. I mean, I've found in the years, because I rode before e-bikes, I was testing normal bikes or analog, and I didn't ever have a major issue. I think
they're pretty good.
They were like, I think once I popped a chain because the link wasn't put together properly, and that was it. Otherwise, the bike's reliable. You know, tire cuts are the worst I've had, but that's not the bike's fault. That's where you ride.
So you just reminded me of something. You asked me about Autoshift earlier.
Yeah.
And like automatic gears, and much as I'm not like, I don't think they're not currently not a big thing for me, because I like to shift when I want to shift. I like to be in control of that. But I've been riding mountain bikes for 30 years. Like if someone's got on a bike for the first time and they don't know that up's down and down's up, and up the cassettes for like easy gear and down the cassettes for hard gear, they don't know any. There's no numbers. So like if they can just get on a bike and ride off and it changes gear, and
that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
So I really love that descending mode. So they call it coast shift. So I found the uphill was like, okay, you know, it was a little bit probably a little bit behind the curve for me. I had it on +2, and I preferred it. But downhill, like you've just come up over something, you ride off, concentrate on what you're doing, and you pedal again. And I kind of gave it complete trust, and you found yourself in the right gear.
Yeah, I always found it was a little bit too tall of a gear for me.
Oh, too tall for you.
And then, or I'd come into a corner, brake real hard, go to come out of it, and be like, oh my God, I'm really far down the cassette.
that was the only thing, because it can't see what's going on ahead. But the SRAM didn't, like, I really like, what's his name, the brand, the PR guy for SRAM. He was really honest about the whole system, what it can and cannot do. Helped us understand. I like the fact it only has 2 power modes.
Yeah, he's not your usual marketing guy.
No, but it only has 2 power modes, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't like?
No, I don't. I think it's not enough.
You want more.
And I know you can customize them in the app and stuff. And I'm not going to like go over what I went through in the other video, but it's like I just think I think 3.
You want 3?
I think you need 3, because I'd like one for when really I do need to conserve my battery. And I'd maybe like a traction style mode that's not full gas. Yeah. And I don't want to have to take my phone out and tone down or push up one of them to get that. I'd just like it to be like, because sometimes you can have too much power.
But haven't I started a new movement of more turbo? So
more turbo is fine, but if you want to do technical climbing, more turbo is not always the answer.
Yeah, that's true, because you can spin out and lose traction.
Exactly. You need to meter that power. So I don't think 2's enough.
Well, it's interesting to see the approach of everyone as they're trying to find their way. But I haven't tried the Shimano Autoshift. Have you?
Nope. No,
that's very mysterious. Why has that not been
My colleague Paul Burwell, he went on the launch for that and he rode it, and he was pretty impressed by it. And what's funny is like 2 brands have made so Canyon launched. So Paul got a long termer, a Canyon, a Spectral on, which we thought had Autoshift. And what's interesting is Canyon said it had Autoshift.
Okay.
It didn't, because it had a 12-speed cassette. And basically it had the coast shift feature. Yeah. But it didn't have auto shift. So we were Paul was like, why doesn't this auto shift work? I can't get the auto shift to work. And then we realized actually it's been disabled because it's not got an 11-speed cassette.
Because you need the 11-speed, was it Link Glide?
Link Glide? Yeah.
Which is a good move Shimano made, because the Link Glide, and I'll be honest,
I don't know why the brands didn't spec it. Like, it's an e-bike. Who gives a got 12 gears,
they should
11
have done
gears.
That 6 years ago. Because chains have been wearing out so quickly.
And then YT recently just were about to launch their updated decoy platform, and they made exactly the same mistake in the PR and everything, and they nipped it in the bud just before it got released. So like, I don't know. I don't know why the brand. I think it's this it's a numbers game, right? How much torque you got, how much power have you got, and what was your bike weigh? Numbers, right? And then basically, oh, you've only got 11 gears. This one's got 12. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, it's.
They're not like none of those
11
things.
to 12 speed difference isn't really. I haven't noticed any advantage of it. In fact, we met when they launched the 7-speed.
What was it called? The
EX.
EX?
The SRAM EX. And I really liked it.
It only worked with that early Bosch motor because the way it was so weirdly pokey that it kind of like you needed the big jumps in the gears.
But it was very robust. It had a 10-speed chain. It never wore out. I had one on test for ages.
Heavy cassette.
It was so reliable.
But they took the
one-tap shift.
The one-tap shift from that. So like
that was a good idea, rather than banging all the way through the gears and risking grinding and snapping chains.
Well, I do that though. Like that's one of the things.
She's like, not my chain.
No. Well, you're right. I'm on a test bike, so like I ride it like a rental. Okay, that's how it is. I mean, that's what it should be, right?
Don't be gentle. It's a rental.
No, I do. I treat the bikes with respect, but also like because someone's going to do that. Why should I? You know,
I hate to give a bike back scratched. That's the worst thing.
But the thing is, you go down a hill, and you don't know where you're going, and you come to a quick, sharp, punchy turnaround on your e-bike.
Yeah, bang, 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 bang. Yeah.
Screw it. I want it to go across it because I need to get the gear to get the cadence up to keep the motor working so I can get out of that hole. And if I've got to do it, like if I've got to wait for the timing ports on the cassette to turn around and the gears, the chain to pick up and shift, I ain't getting there in time.
That's a lot of pedal turns, yeah.
I ain't getting there in time.
Because you're going to go bump, 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 bump.
And you know what?
You might have to wait 10 times.
The old SRAM axis that made that bang, bang, where you could just bang it through the cassette. It sounded like the whole thing was going to explode. It never did.
No, it didn't, did it?
No, it never did. Like it freaked me. It was noisy, but it was robust.
Yeah. So what do you think about new gearbox, e-bike?
I've not ridden one.
No, I haven't ridden one.
I've tested. So I tested analog gearbox full suspension bikes 15 years ago, 16 years ago. No, not really.
Have you ever ridden the mythical
They weren't
Honda?
okay. They had too much resistance in the motors.
Have you ever ridden the mythical Honda?
No, but I measured it. Oh man, we got like
The mythical R1. Was it R1
I don't know
or
if I can
N1?
tell it. I don't remember the name of it. Was it the
Was the
RN? Was the
gearbox-
RN01
yeah.
maybe or something? NR01?
And they had to crush them all, get rid of them all because
I
of,
think they got stolen, didn't they? I think they got stolen. Like there's some guy in Whistler had one, didn't they, or something?
but I know part of the research and development point of Japan tax laws is when they make something, R&D, then they have to destroy it.
So it can't be sold.
Yeah. Or
No,
something.
I never rode one. I measured it, and the bike was tiny. I can't believe, because Brendan and Minar were both on them, and the bikes were minuscule.
Really?
Absolutely minuscule. Yeah, we were at Fort William once, and Minar was cooling down after his practice or something like that, and there was no one else there. Whiteley wasn't there. There was no one at the Honda thing. So me and Johnny just went in and we're chatting to Minar, and I was measuring the bike, thumbing through the gears and stuff, and then they found out about it, and they didn't know who I was because I'm not a celebrity like Jonesy, yeah. And Jonesy got so much shit, and I just got off scot-free. But I ran a tape measure over it, and I was like, this bike is like a BMX. It's tiny. I mean, you look at footage, you can probably find some footage you could nick and put in this video of Minar or Brendan riding it. I mean, all the bikes of that era were small.
Yeah.
But those bikes were really, for guys that tall, Brendan and Minar, both tall riders.
They're huge riders.
And they were, I don't care if you had Showa suspension, gearbox, or whatever, they were at a disadvantage just because their bikes were too small.
Yeah.
100%.
But the gearbox was basically a derailleur inside a box, upside down inverted.
Super cool.
Derailleur.
Like amazing. Like it'd make a great e-bike.
Yeah.
Like it's got a split down tube. You put the battery right there. Put a motor where the thing is, and I actually hope that they can figure out the efficiency problem and get rid of the derailleur.
Yeah.
And have a gearbox
With a Gates
system.
drive.
I don't know, maybe not that. Maybe you could still have a chain. Chains are really good.
Yeah.
Chains are really efficient. Just don't want I'd say it's pretty crazy that T-types kind of made one of the disposable components, like the derailleur on the bike, one of the most, it's an expensive component now.
It's like 1,000 for 900
Well, it's less
euro.
than that, but if you smack one and destroy it, I mean, they're pretty robust, but if you smack it and destroy it, it's a pretty expensive part. And also that put the price of all the bikes up.
Yeah.
All the bikes having T-type and having electronic shifting
Yeah.
escalated the pricing again.
Which takes us almost right back to the beginning and near the end of this podcast, where we tested that on an expensive bike. It was 11 grand
on the
Nuke
Nuke
proof, which is
Okay, when people say, so when people watching this, you're talking euros, I'm talking pounds. Okay, so
Sorry.
I'm thinking, no, that bike's 9,999. It's of course, because you're talking euros, I'm talking pounds.
yeah, Brexit as well.
No, we're not going into
Costs.
that. We're not going into that.
But yeah, interesting. But yeah, wow, what a discussion. We've covered so many things, a bit randomly jumping around sometimes.
I think you've hit all the list, though, haven't you?
We've hit all the list. There's some enthusiasts out there who just really want to know what we've got to say and reflect on the experience.
I listen to a lot of podcasts,
Yeah.
so hopefully your viewers watching this, they can take something away from it, not just two blokes talking shit. Basically,
No.
I hope they get something from it, even just a bit of entertainment, or they maybe take a thing away about, I haven't friggin' adjusted my suspension since I left the bike shop a year ago, or when it came in the box and they told me those are the settings. They may not be the right ones.
No.
Play with it.
You gotta
Experiment.
play with it. Yeah.
Ride the same track a couple of times, change some settings, and all you got to do is make a note of them just when you begin with, and then you can always go back.
No. So
On your podcast, just bleep me out. Sorry for swearing.
So last question.
Your son's watching this. What is he, 13? So maybe bleep the swearing out.
So what's the next bike you're testing?
I've got 3 downhill bikes on test,
Okay.
which I actually tested in the summer. I need to shoot them, video them, and then basically put the content out on them.
Cool. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
So yeah, it's Canyon, YT, and a propane.
So everyone, finding out more about that, well, you know where you are, find me, but MBR Mountain Bike
Mountain Bike Rider,
magazine.
mbr.co.uk.
Yeah.
So
And you can go and see all their stuff.
we've got a YouTube channel. You can go and watch all our bike test videos.
Really good, really highly recommended. And I love doing collabs with different people from different outlets, because I just feel like it's great to share the fun of biking, and doing what we have to do.
And just remember, just one dude's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Like you ride the bike, like it's maybe more qualified because you've ridden more bikes, but
Yeah.
it's just bike testing. Come on, it's like it's no big deal.
Bye everyone.
Thanks for watching.
Like and subscribe.